All right. Welcome, everybody, and welcome back if you're coming from our JavaScript session to the first week of our web development class through our program at the Schaumburg District Library called Tech Bytes. And you might see that we got week 1 and week 9 on our slide, and that might be the week 9 for the JavaScript session if you've been following us along for the past 2.5 months through the summer. You know, Andrew and I have been going over various languages such as Python in our previous session, and now the JavaScript session as well. Now transitioning into some different courses now called web development, and for our Python session called Intro to Programming. And without any further ado, we'd like to get started and let's get to the point. In case it looks like we have some new people who are joining the web development, you don't know me. My name is Rayan Siddiqui. I'm a rising senior at James B. Conant High School. I love to code, made various apps for the App Store, made a dozen different websites. If you want to learn more about me, check out my website at rayansiddiqui.com. And for the last time in this Tech Bytes session, my partner, Andrew.
Thank you for the introduction, Rayan. Yes, this will sadly be my final Tech Bytes lesson, especially if you have been tracking these lessons for the past 2.5 months. But in case you don't know me, hi, I am Andrew Choi. I'm going to be soon to be freshman at Purdue University. I'm also interested in coding like my coworker, Rayan. I'm particularly interested in computer graphics, and I illustrate on the side. If you want to see what I've done, I have a website, andrewchoi.info.
All right. So if you're from the JavaScript session or Python session, you know how we roll. We have an agenda, we talk what we're going to do, and then we get to it. So for today, we're going to be recapping what we've done from our JavaScript session just to get a brief overview, and in case anybody has any questions, fill them in. Discuss the future of our web development course along with our Intro to Programming course, and then we'll discuss some new terms.
All right, just like last time, we have our Google Classroom code. You can copy and paste it right now. Do you think we should probably put it in the chat?
Yep, drop in the chat real quick.
This will be where, if you're new to this lessons, this will be where you will be able to access things like classwork or review material from the previous days. Just generally stuff you can access for this class.
Yep, Andrew and I, we send out weekly updates along with the YouTube links to the recorded sessions. And speaking of the recorded, all right, we'll get to that in a second. Yeah, so you can find all the information on our Google Classroom. So during our JavaScript sessions, looks like we have a lot of people from there. We did a lot of different exercises, in general, a lot of different computer science exercises, whether it be block coding, starting out small, discussing, if you remember that first week, way back in the first week of June, we talked about what is computer science. We all started with a stepping block, and now we've gradually made our way more and more and into learning about different concepts, such as variables, functions, loops, logic statements, which are if-else statements, different files which are prevalent in developing a website, such as the HTML, CSS, and the JavaScript file. And we made a ton of different cool projects. We made higher lore games, we made quiz games, we've put our concepts into actual applications. And you can expect the same thing, but better, hopefully, through this web development course. Andrew and I, we're always perfecting what we do and love to hear feedback on whether that be on our Google Classroom or through the chat. And yeah, so we will be continuing diving even deeper into typing out code. And through this course, the web development course, we will be going more into the website development, learning more about that. And yeah, so if you're here, stay tuned. It's going to be a great ride.
All right, so as we mentioned before, we have recorded all of these old sessions, and you can actually access them at our YouTube channel. Everything from Python to JavaScript, it is categorized by week, as you can see. It is right there.
Yep.
Rand, could you give us? Could you copy paste? Say it's from Schaumburg Library.
Yep.
You can access it from the YouTube channel right there.
Yep, guys, the YouTube channel name, in case you're not in the classroom right now, is the Schaumburg Library. And I believe we have a playlist. If just switch the tab over, you should see a Tech Bytes playlist where you can find all the recordings to the past 2 months of all the Tech Bytes sessions, and you can even find our Hack Central. recordings. All right, so without any further ado, let's pick up where we left off on week 9 from the JavaScript session and into now our new course called the web development. And going into our first typing code example for today, that being learning about what are Booleans. Now, essentially, if you remember from way back, we talked about a topic called binary, representing a 0 or a 1, either being on and off. Well, think about Booleans being a similar type of concept. They're either, instead of being on or off, think about them being as true or false. Now, Booleans are a way for us to check, if you remember our while loops, which we started coding a couple weeks ago, we can use Booleans in order to check if a statement is valid. And essentially what they allow us to do is to check if a condition is being met. And Booleans are especially useful when we are using them in an if-else statement type of context. So if you remember those logic statements, which we are used to typing out, the if-else statements, we can use them to check if a condition is true, and then we can run a certain piece of code. And basically, Booleans are super simple to type out. As you can see in the JavaScript syntax over to the right, you simply type out the var, the name of whatever your Boolean variable is, because the Boolean is still a variable. It is still holding a value, but just either a true or a false, representing if a condition has been met or not. And you can notice how the word true is all lowercase, something which we've not talked about, which we will get into next week into our intro to programming course. We'll talk about how in Python, you'll find that typing out Booleans, there's actually a capital T and a capital F for the word true or false, but don't want to get into the Python right now. That's pretty much it for the JavaScript one.
All right, so in addition to Booleans, we are also learning about something called a global and local variable. Just think of them as two types of variable. They are similar in the sense that they're both variables, but it's different in how we access them. Now, for global variables, these are variables that can be used essentially everywhere. I use that loosely, but generally that's what you'll encounter when with a lot of these variables. Local variables, however, can only be used in specific functions or scopes. For instance, what we have here is this function, Boolean func, and inside that we have the local variable. Notice how that it's sort of between those semi curly brackets. That's called like scoping, but you don't need to know that much about that right now. You just need to know that you cannot access the local variable in that example we show there outside of the function. Whereas, say, the global variable, you can access that inside the function, but you can also use it outside of the function.
Yep, and guys, the same concept applies for any type of variable, whether in this case, like Andrew was explaining, whether it be you're assigning a numeric value, or like we were talking about previously, whether it be a Boolean. If, say, this Boolean is declared inside of our function Boolean func, it can only be used inside that function. If, say, we put this Boolean var outside of the function, hence we could use it wherever we technically, for now, let's say that you can use it wherever you want inside of your program. So without any further ado, let's apply these new terms and open up our coding website. In case you are new, we will drop the link in the chat so you can open it. All right, and once everybody is on, we would appreciate it if you could let us know so we can get started. Aditi, Ayush, Suzanne. Once you guys are in, let us know. All right. All right, so how about we put today's lesson into practice and see the difference between a local and global variable and even get some practice in with some Booleans. So how about we create a quick button off the bat to initiate our function. Remember, the onClick allows us to designate what function we're going to be calling. I'll just, I'll create the function later, but I'll call it start for now with the open and end parentheses. And then the greater than sign. Then we'll call this button, say click me. There we go. Oh, and before I get started, if you are new, I would highly recommend that you guys create a JS Fiddle account. It is super useful in being able to save your code, which you guys do with us. And we post our link to the code so that if you get lost, something breaks, if there's a bug or whatever the case might be, you can compare it to ours and run a fresh copy. So I'm just going to call this one Tech Bytes and JavaScript week 9. There we go. All right. So how about we see the difference between global and local variables? So first, how about we create that function start, which we said is going to be called when we click our button, like such. All right, and how about we create a local variable now because it is inside of our function start. How about we say var name equals, how about we ask the user for their name? Now, remember how to do that? Well, we gotta prompt the user for their name. So how about we just ask them, what is your name? Like such. All right, now how about we display the user's name in our actual HTML? If you remember how to do that, we talked a couple of weeks ago about the DOM, or the document object model, and how we can manipulate our HTML using JavaScript. So how do you do that? Well, how about we make a P, or a paragraph tab, give it an ID for, we'll say hold name, because it's going to display our name, and then greater than or equal to sign, and there we go. Now we gotta display the actual name using the DOM. Well, here's the really big line of code. Here we go. So document.get element, capital B by capital ID. We put the name of our ID, which is whole name. Then dot inner all caps HTML, and we can finally set it equal to the name variable. This should display our name, like such. So if we run the program, hit click me, we'll put our name in. If I put my name in Rayon, we can see my name being shown. Now, this is similar to what we've been doing, but where does the actual differentiation come between a local and a global variable? Well, how about we see the difference? So how about we create a separate function where we're going to try to use our name variable. So how about if we go down here, create another function called, we'll call it second start, like such, or whatever you want to call it in this case. Open and closed curly brackets. Now, what if we try to not change our HTML in the start function? How about we copy this line of code, but instead we try to change our HTML calling a second function? Well, how would that work? Well, let's see what happens first. If I call this function like such right here, and we set to call a function from another function, essentially what is happening, guys, I'm not sure if we completely covered this yet. This might be in a future video, but to give a quick glance, we're running this line of code first because it is before this line of code. But then after this line of code is executed, our second line of code, which this signifies that, hey, we're calling a function. So then the computer looks for a function called second start, and then it runs whatever code is prevalent inside of that function. So if we run our code, let's see what happens. Will our name be displayed if our variable is not inside of that function? Let's see. So it prompts us. That's good. I put my name. Our name is not being shown though. Well, Andrew, do you want to explain why?
It is indeed not a global variable. You are using a local variable, and it is not correctly using the variable name.
Yep.
Or more like, it does not even have access to the variable name.
Yep.
Now let's actually see if we can make a name a global variable. So you'll see that, hold on, we're just going to like run this real quick. Hold on, I'm just like testing it real quick. Let's just say like, you'll see that no result right now. But if we do something like var name equals, we'll just put a placeholder for now. And instead, remember, we are actually using the same variable, so we do not need to declare it anymore. So it's as simple as not using var anymore. And you'll see that now var name is global. It is used throughout the script we have here. And it is being used here. And it is being used here. So we're all on the same track right now. We're using a global variable, not a local variable that is belongs to only one function. So let's actually execute it. So name, let's actually try mine for now. And you'll see very much that it does work. We are now using the same variable. I know we did just do that. Does everybody on the same track here? Because I'm not sure if everybody has this, wrote all this code correctly. Anybody having troubles?
I think we're good.
Okay, I think we're good. I mostly mentioned that because in case we talk a little fast, please feel safe to ask us if we are going too fast for you and we need to slow down. So, Rayan, do you think we should move on to Booleans?
Yep. Let's move on to Booleans now.
All right.
All right. So for practice purposes, you don't have to do this, but so that we can give the link, I'm just going to call this one local vars, so that in the Google Classroom where we post our daily updates, our weekly updates, you can find this fiddle. So I'm just going to open up a new fiddle to give you guys a fresh copy. All right. All right, so let's get into talking about what are Booleans and what can we do with them and typing them out and all that good stuff. So to get started, how about we create a quick button, guys, so that we can call our function like we did last time. So if you want, you could even just copy and paste this piece of code like such. Now we're on click, we're seeing that we're calling a function called start. So we got to declare that function start. So let's go to function, call whatever we mentioned up in our button on click, open and close curly brackets like such. One second. All right, so now that we got our function typed out, how about we do some sort of, how about we first type out our first Boolean? So we'll say, if for syntax purposes, it's the same thing as a var, the name of our Boolean. So we'll call this first Boolean. And now we're not setting it equal to a number or a word. We're setting it equal to either true or false. So how about we just say true? And there we go, as simple as that. We have typed our first Boolean. Now, how about we actually do something with our Boolean? And let's see, what exercise can we do? All right, so how about we continue that same train of thought which we had last time, in which we got the user's name, but how about we apply some if-else logic to see if it's the right user? Now, how do we do that? Well, here we go. So remember, we have to ask the users for their name, so we'll call a variable to hold the user's name, called username. We'll prompt the user for their name. All right, now we've prompted our user for our name, we can run, see it's all running good. Now we want to use some if-else logic to evaluate whether or not the right name was selected. Well, how about we use a similar idea, if you guys remember from we were doing previously in our previous fiddle, that being calling a function to abstract or clean up our code. So how about we create a second function called function evaluate name, so that we can check whether the right or wrong name is being entered. So suppose some type of top security firm or something of that sort, where we're checking if the right person is entering to ask some action, right? So how about here? First, we have to call our function evaluate name when the user enters their name. Well, how can we pass a local variable into a second function? Remember parameters? Well, that's how we can do it. So how about we copy and paste this name of our evaluate name. We'll add a parameter, which is the value being transferred into the function. We'll say here name, and then we simply paste the name of our function, and then the value which we are passing, like so. So remember, this username will now be available inside of this evaluate name function because we are passing it as a value, as a parameter now. So this username is now accessible in this function as the variable name. How can we use that? Well, so now we can actually do some logic statements to see if the name is the right name. So here we go. Type some if statements. So if, open and close parentheses. So we're going to say if the name which the user has entered equals we'll put let's put John, then open and close curly brackets. We want to use Booleans now to see if what type of name is being printed out. So what we're going to do now is return the Boolean true. Now, otherwise, else, if the name is not John, we're going to return the value of a Boolean false. Now, we are getting a value from our evaluate name function. It is returning a value to us. But how about we're not holding that value anywhere? Well, in order to hold the result, we have to hold that, we gotta hold it in a variable. So how about we type a variable called var, hold output, we'll call it, and set it equal to this function. So this way, if we think about it logically, say our user puts the name John in, then this function is going to be called, evaluating the name. If the name is John, it is going to return or spit back a value of true. And then that true value is being held in the variable called hold output. To visualize it, how about we even alert it out? So we'll alert our hold output variable to see what is being spit out. So let's run this. Like me. We'll put the right name, John. and we should see the next alert or pop-up say true. And there we go. Similarly, if we run this and put the wrong name, say I put my name, it's going to return false. So in this case, guys, to put it simply, Booleans are allowing us to see if a condition is true or not. And one of the most common ways which they are used is in functions like this, where they're being returned. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. This is a lot of new information, obviously. So. All right. So we will continue. So Andrew, do you want to talk about Booleans with while loops?
Sure. When we're doing while loops, you might know that we were initially teaching you that a while loop looks like this. You should already know this, a while loop, and then there should be like some condition here. And you don't need to type this all out. I'm just like showing this for instance. Turns out that this thing here is actually just a Boolean. This is what computer programmers use to actually evaluate things like whiles and loops. And generally, when we have conditions that are met, we use a Boolean. So if statements that name equals John, that's a Boolean. We generally use Booleans to sort of control the direction of our code. So let's actually perform an example like that. Let's continually prompt what someone's name is until we get a John. So let's actually do that right now.
Should we get a second button so that this code stays intact if anybody had any questions?
Sorry, what?
Should we just have like a second button, or like connect to a separate function so that this code stays intact?
Sure. Yep. Gonna have to do a bit of copy and pasting, but I think anybody who's ever looked up the Control-C key will know how to actually do that. So let's actually do that. So I'm just going to copy and paste this.
Oh, here, I think I'm going to, from my end, I'm just going to call this start to.
All right. Thank you, Rayon. So we should probably keep the hold output. I'm going to actually declare it a little ways off. So I'm going to put it over here. We're going to initially set it to true. And let's actually not say hold output. Let's actually call this not John. And you'll know that that's not exactly what the evaluate name function does, but we'll get to that in a minute. We'll be manipulating Booleans, and we will see that in a second. Actually, hold on. I'm sorry. It should be is John. Not John. I'm thinking of something else. Apologies for that. So right now, we should probably test that this is working right now. So let's actually do a quick alert. John. You'll notice that the code is really not that different. We've just moved some stuff around. And I'm going to allow some people, I'm not going to actually call this start2. I'm just going to call it start2 as in the word. I did type quite a bit, so if people can give some indication whether they're done with their copying what I've just typed, that would be great. If you could just indicate that in the chat real quick. All right. One person says they're done. Two people say they are done. We should just be getting two, and I think we'll be ready to go. All right, I think that that's enough time to work on that part. Let's actually extend this to the while loop. Doing that, we'll have to do this. Well, we won't be using the alert anymore. We will just be using the actual loops. So let's actually indent these two lines of code to indicate they are going to be repeating. I'm going to type a while loop right there. I'm not going to actually fill it. I am just going to leave it open for now. And once I'm done filling this while loop, I'm going to show you something called, I don't believe we had this in the slides, but it is still very relevant. I'm going to manipulate the isJohn variable. It is going to look something like this. What this is essentially doing is that it is flipping it. So if isJohn was true, it would result in a false Boolean. If isJohn was false, it would result in a true Boolean. If you're uncomfortable with that, you can just type this for now. That's probably another way of intuitively doing that. That is just me giving a sneak peek of how we can manipulate Booleans. All right, that was a lot of information, but I believe this should be able to run. Let's actually just make sure we have, no, that should be good. All right, let's run that.
Nothing would Andrew change isJohn to false initially.
Yep. Thank you. Small lapse in logic right there. Let's just say something like calling Rayon right now, and you'll see that because it is checking the Boolean variable isJohn, we are unable to go past the loop, so we have to put in another name. So let's actually do another one. Let's just say Andrew. And of course, this will be doing this forever. And of course, we don't want that. Let's actually put in the right name, John. And just like that, using the Boolean variable, we are able to exit out of the loop. Would you like to comment more about that, Rayon?
Sure, yeah. All right, so hopefully you guys have been able to see now how we can actually use Booleans in order to usefully use them in a while loop context. You know, we saw how we could use them in a standalone statement while evaluating if a condition is met and whether seeing if something is true or false. Well, similarly, how we saw here with Andrew is that we can use a while loop to keep on running. And we've talked about, remember, how while loop and there's always that condition inside of here and how that condition is like a Boolean because it is checking whether a condition is being met, aka if that condition is true. Otherwise, if the condition is not being met, also known as false. So in this case, this line of this while loop is telling us that while the isJohn variable is false, we keep on running whatever code is inside. And as you saw, when Andrew inputted an incorrect name, we were told to, hey, what is your name again and again and again until we put the right name, that being John. And until this is evaluated to false, this line of code, this while loop will keep on running. And next week, we will be going more into depth on learning about, with more Booleans, how we can use something, implement something called De Morgan's law, or to put it simply, it's a way for us to check whether our Booleans are being met, along with some other conditions. That's some more deep diving stuff we'll do. And yeah. All right. So for next week, guys, we'll be learning more about De Morgan's law and how to use Booleans in a larger context. And if we have time, we'll get a good class gauge. We will potentially begin a multi-week calculator project, which will be a nice hands-on project. So be excited for that. As usual, you can find the links to the fiddles on our Google Classroom, as always, along with the link to the recorded version of this session, along with the past 2.5 months. If you guys ever any questions, we are always checking the classroom. So feel free to drop any questions, any comments, anything you guys want to say. As usual, we hope that you guys had a great time, learned something new. Be sure to wish Andrew a happy departure, farewell. It's been a great year almost now with running Tech Bytes, and we hope that you guys, as usual, had a great time, and take care. See you guys.
Thank you for coming. And for those not coming to the trivia, farewell.